Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to have you here today in our session, which is entitled Learning English in the Perspective of the Department of English at University of Karbala. We have here Dr. Mؤيد Amran, Dr. Zahir, and Dr. Haydar Kaaظم, and Dr. ضياء Khaleil. Dr. Mؤيد, could you give me an idea about the English department?
Well, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk here about the Department of English concerning English language. First of all, the Department of English was founded in the academic year 2006-2007. The first batch consisted of 40 students in the morning studies. For the time being, we are having about 2,000 students in the morning and evening. The first chair of the department was Mr. Muslim Mohammed Dahmoud, then followed by Dr. Ghanem Jwaid. Then he succeeded by Dr. Sabah Wajid, who is now in Canada. And for the present time, me. Of course, we set a vision for the Department of English. The vision is to prepare a comprehensive framework of English language to our students. This is the vision. We have also set some goals and objectives. The general goal of the Department of English is to prepare our students to be professional English language teachers at the secondary and intermediate schools in the future. These students can connect the theory they learn in the university and the current practices at schools. Our graduates can be conversant with the properties of language and professional development. We have an objective for this, is to provide our students with a deepened knowledge of language skills, literature, and the value of critical thinking. We also teach our students to speak, to write, to read and comprehend effectively. Also, we encourage our students to analyze English language structure and connect the vocabulary which are associated with communication. We encourage our students to pursue their higher studies in the future. Also, we encourage them to love language and appreciate education. We try to prepare our students to participate in the community by, for example, finding certain activities in the society at large. We set also some other goals, like training the university affiliates to be having knowledge in English language. And as we did last time when we set a course for English language training, or English training course.
Thank you very much. Dr. Raith, what is the importance of English language?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Well, I mean, there are several benefits of learning English, but get this, there are over 1 billion people who speak the English language, either their first language or their second language. Because English now is a lingua franca. That means it's the language that's used all around the world.
All around, yeah.
So let's say that you want to travel to travel abroad. You have to learn English for you to do that. You have to cope. I mean, the only way that you can learn another culture is by you knowing the English language so that you can use it and apply it effectively. Second thing is that all today's great movies, great novels, great TV series are basically produced using the English language, correct?
Sure.
So English is essential throughout. Furthermore, I mean, if you want to get a scholarship, which, I mean, we always encourage our students to finish their higher education, finishing their master's degree, PhD maybe. So without the knowledge of the English language, they will struggle a lot. So they need to learn for them to basically continue their path, their education path.
You mean it's the key?
Of course, it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Dr. Haydar,
Yes.
Is the department able to improve the four skills of the English language?
Yes. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity for, giving our perspective about English language. First of all, we have two tasks in our department. The task of teaching the students to learn the language. This is number one. And number two, to teach them to be teachers, to train them to be teachers. So first of all, how to use the language, how to be EFL learners for the language. And that needs, of course, the four skills, the listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And I just started ordering them in this chronological order because we have start with listening. First, as a human beings, we have first to listen, and then to speak properly. Much you listen, much you speak properly. And then to read. Reading will give you the opportunity to acquire a lot of vocabulary in which you can maneuvering using them either in writing or even in speaking. As for writing, which is the most advanced one, we have difficulties in writing, especially academic writing. We are not acquainted with how to write. You can speak, you can manage yourself, but in writing, we have set of rules to be followed. First of all, the motivation. We have to motivate them to learn the language, which means unless they acquire the language and be good learners of the language, they cannot be good teachers. So they have to acquire the language first, how to be good learners, and then how to be good teachers in the future. So I guess, according to the syllabus, it is, restricted. We are restricted by the syllabus, by the Ministry of Higher Education. But still, we have to maneuver using the methods of teaching. That's why we utilize active learning. We are trying to use the learner-centered approach, not the teacher-centered approach. And here, I guess we have more than one role to play. It is not a matter of you are the controller and that's all. You are the master of the situation. The case here, which means you have to be a facilitator, you have to be a controller sometimes, organizer, tutor sometimes, participant sometimes. So it depends. It depends on the activity you are going to use. It depends on the learner's characteristics. So these things play, a big role of taking our roles in the in teaching the language.
Thank you very much. Dr. ضياء, what are the difficulties by the students in improving their skills?
Okay, thank you, Mؤيد, I'm very glad really to be with you today. First of all, let me talk about the common problems we have with the students. For example, we have some common problems. For example, students usually say that we know grammar, for example, but we can't use it. This is one of the, let's say, common problems they have. They say, for example, okay, we have a lot of vocabulary, but in the English language, how to master all these things? Okay, I understand my teacher, but I don't know how to speak, how to communicate, for example, with a native speaker. These are the common problems. The points, actually, I want to say, or I want to mention as difficulties encountered by the students in the department. First of all, we have to bear in mind that we are not dealing with a native speaker, with native language, we are dealing with a foreign language. So the students, first of all, they are not familiar with the language. It's a strange language, it's a foreign language. This is number one. Number two, the students are, especially in the department, we have a large number of students. The teacher doesn't have the opportunity, for example, to communicate or to give chance to students to talk or to participate in the activities. And sometimes the students are not encouraged. For example, when they go outside the department, they don't have chance to use the language. For example, their friends, their relatives, they don't encourage them to use the language.
Sometimes they mock them.
Definitely, they are social creatures, social figures. They need to be they need to be respected by their friends. They don't want to be rejected. If you use the language with people where the English language is not appreciated, definitely you are going to prefer to use the mother tongue, the Arabic language. And sometimes, I mean, one of the, let's say, the difficulties also, students don't have the vocabulary. I mean, they don't have the sufficient amount of vocabs they need to speak. For example, how can they speak if they don't have vocabulary?
Yeah,
how can they speak if they don't know about the grammar, you know? Besides, another problem, you know, our students, they think first in Arabic, then they take time to translate it into English, and then they look for the patterns, the grammatical patterns, and this takes time. These are the major difficulties, the major problems. Besides, we have problems caused by sometimes by the teachers, problems by the students. Students sometimes they are coming not for the sake of, no, they don't want to study. For example, they don't want to improve the language. I mean, it is the nature of maybe they are busy. They don't want to. They don't have time to read. So it depends. Some of the difficulties associated with the teacher. Sometimes the text itself doesn't help the students to improve the skills. Sometimes the teaching methods.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mؤيد, in a few words, what is the role of the instructor to improve the skills mentioned?
Well, thank you very much. In fact, the role of the instructor is not to be confined to the control of the class or something, but he has to increase the chance of students' prediction, particularly in speaking and writing. Students have to use language at least 3 times a week in order to use this language. In case of writing, they should be given writing tasks, and these tasks should be focused on certain activity. For example, vocabulary or the format of an essay, and such kind of activities.
Dr. Wright, what is the role of the instructor?
He should be a guider. He should guide his students to be as good as the teacher wants them to be. Because our intention for us teaching the students is for them to be successful teachers. Because if we have successful teachers, then we'll produce a good generation, or a generation that will actually fix the problems that we are facing today. So I think the biggest role as a teacher is to guide the students, or to present them with a teaching technique that will basically change them and say, well, this is a good technique, I'm going to use that. So this is the way. This is how I see it.
Dr. حيدر?
Yes, I guess you as a teacher, you have to be creative, because teaching is an art. And to be an artist, you have to be creative.
Not restricted. Not instructed.
Yeah, of course. So I guess you have to be, you have to adapt, according to the environment. If the environment is not equivalent, if the environment is not suitable for the teaching process, you have to adapt. You have to use something which is related. You have to use the proper methods of teaching. According to the structuralists, they have to teach one skill at a time, okay, and then the integrative, the audiolingualism, 2 at a time. But for the communicative approach, the aim is different, the objective is different. The objective is not the language itself. The language is a means of communication, so the aim is how to communicate. So how to communicate, we need to use this active learning, as I said, which means to use group work, problem solving, task-based approach. We can use other, methods which are related to the active learning techniques. Cooperative learning, collaborative learning, role-playing, etc. We have lots of things to use. But here our role is to adapt, which means to see the classroom environment and then to decide the content first you are going to teach. Is it, let's say, suitable to be, let's say, divided into parts in order to use a group work? And then the environment, do you have if the class is larger than the amount, we have to use different way, which means to divide the class into 2, one of them to be an audience and the second one would be the participants, let's say. And then this is, of course, an adaptation. There's not written in textbooks, but you have to improvise. So as a teacher, you have to be creative and you have to improvise. Thank you.
Dr. ضياء?
Thank you, Mؤيد. Actually, I want to say something about why our students face difficulty in the department. You know, we have a gap. I feel there is a gap between what we have in the secondary school and what we have in the department. In the secondary school, especially, I mean, the teachers and instructors in the secondary school, they teach students just to pass the test. They don't teach them language. So when they come to the department, students are not able to use the language, are not able to communicate with their, let's say, with their colleagues, with their friends. The suggestion, actually, we have tips for them. I mean, you can use your own groups. You can, for example, you have your own society. You can start your own, let's say, you may use of the social medias. Nowadays, we have everything on the social media. You can make use of all these things in order to what? In order to improve the skills, to improve the English language.
Oh, thank you. We'll take a break and we'll come back. Back to our session. We have now the last question. Doctor, what is the biggest problem in learning English?
Well, there are many problems, but from my point of view, students face difficulties in managing time and space in their study. When it comes to the place, they should find a suitable area of their study, a suitable environment. When you ask a student, most of the students, how can you read and where can you read? They say, we read while in bed, and or while in dining room or in the living room. And you know that the first function of the bed is to sleep, not to study. And the first function of the dining room is for food. And the living room is socializing to people. How can you study, to focus on your study with such environment? So you should have a certain environment that determines the way of your study. Even if you have one room for sleeping and for eating and for socializing, you can adapt this. You turn your back to the bed. Here I have a lamp. You call it a study lamp, and you should specify a time for this. You call this, for example, if it is a red color, I'm going to study. Switch on the red color. Give your back to the bed, study, and then when you feel that you're exhausted, let us say after 30 minutes, so switch off the lamp and then go to the other activity. This is very important. Another thing is that managing time. Most of the students say that we read much, but we cannot answer well in the exam, or we don't comprehend well. You know that the average person pays attention for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then his efficiency trapped off. Means getting lesser. My advice is that to divide a study session into chunks. For example, for 20 minutes one can stop, or 30 minutes stop, then to have something fun, to have a break, and then can start. More time for studying. I mean, study on one session does not necessarily mean efficiency. So this is there should be a management of time and place.
Oh, so now you mean to arrange the time
and place. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
In my opinion, the biggest problem that our students face is a lack of confidence.
Confidence.
Yes, this is very important. Without confidence, you cannot use the language. And in our department, we have some of the greatest students ever. I mean, I have seen wonderful students who know the language very well, but they don't have the confidence to basically use it with us, with their colleagues, with their friends. So we need to build on that we're actually already doing it by conducting workshops.
Good.
And basically, also we are remedying this issue with our speaking classes, conversation classes. And so basically what we are trying to do is that we need to acclimatize the students with the English-speaking environment. Because without it, they will never use the language, and the language will basically fade away and will become part of history.
Do you mean if you break their shyness?
Of course.
It'll be solved?
Of course. And this goes back to their high school and to their secondary school, because they only teach them grammar, without building their confidence to speak the language. And so in the university, we try to basically back up from this bad habits and basically try to improve their confidence and build it up so that they can use the language and speak English language.
So maybe something like, for example, we teach them something like you laugh on your mistakes. Let's make it as if a joke, as if it is a joke. You make a mistake, it's better than making no mistake.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then concerning shyness or confidence.
At the same time, it is not embarrassing.
Not embarrassing. If you are not confident, pretend that you are confident.
Yeah.
And with the passage of time, you get the confidence.
Thank you. Doctor, what is the biggest problem?
Yes, the biggest problem, according to my point of view, I guess the students' feeling of failure. There's a factor which is called feeling of failure. Out of this factor, they tend not to participate in order not to be ridiculous for others. You know, when you commit a mistake, especially in our community, you are going to be ridiculous for others.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, this guy has committed a mistake.
They mock him, they make jokes.
Ridicule him, yeah.
Even on grammatical cues, right? So I guess here our role is to motivate them. We have two types of motivation, which is concerned with learners, the intrinsic and the extrinsic. Intrinsically speaking, they have the reward comes from the inside, which means if he is interested with a subject, content area, so he is going to reward himself. The presentation will give him a reward. So I did well. So we have to reinforce this, which means we have to motivate them. When they perform with certain percentage, we have to say, well done, in order just to encourage them. And then comes the extrinsic, which is come from the outside the self, which means we have to reward them, which means to either award them stars, marks, whatever. It works with elementary levels more than the, of course, advanced ones. But it's still, even with adults, everybody wants rewards, right? So I guess it is, if we can manage this factor of feeling of failure, motivate the students, I guess they are going to learn English.
Dr. ضياء.
Thank you, Mؤيد. Actually, the biggest problem I think in the department is that the absence of listening skills. And students, when in the department, they don't know. You might say why listening is important. I feel listening is important in the department because students need to listen to the teacher, need to listen to the instructor in order to take notes. So in the lecture, you spend, for example, 40 minutes or 45 minutes talking, and when you ask the students what are the points we have been tackling, we have been talking about, they will say, okay, some will say 1 point, and they will say two points, but they are not going to give you an idea about everything. So I think this is one of the biggest problem. How to solve this problem? First of all, our students, actually, just like was said by my colleague Dr. Haidar, I think self-confidence is important. And first, you have to bear in mind that, okay, if you are a beginner, you have to behave, you approach the English language as a beginner. Okay, if you want to improve, you have to start as a beginner, and then you try to develop your skills step by step. For example, if let's talk about listening. Any listening material, choose any listening material, for example, from the YouTube, from Facebook, anywhere, and don't listen just once for this material. Just try to listen it at least 3 times. Repeat the material 3 times. Don't pay attention to the meaning. No need to worry about the meaning because you are listening for the sake of what? For the sake of pronunciation, for the sake of fluency, for the sake of of intonation, for example. And the second time, when you repeat the material, okay, you can get the general idea of the material. The third time, you can look for the meaning of a specific specific vocabs or specific words. If you do it with every day, let's say you have your own timetable, you have your own program. Let's say 15 minutes for listening every day. Okay, don't worry about the meaning. Don't worry about it. Just listen. Just train. Okay, method of training. Just listen every day for 15 minutes, and the process of time, you'll notice that you are improving. But if you are not doing this, of course, you are going to lose a lot because of what you are not listening. You are not paying attention to the lecture. And another point I have also to mention. our students are worried about the mistakes. They are afraid. They don't want to talk. They don't want to express themselves. We know they have problems in grammar. Basically in grammar, they have problems in their vocabs. They don't know what to say. So how to increase, for example, in addition to listening, how to increase the vocabs? Okay, you can increase the vocabs through reading. Every day you have to read, for example, a short story. You have to read a chapter. You have to read an article. I'm fond of, for example, of sports. Okay, I can read an article about sport. I'm fond of religion. I can talk about religion or read an article about religion.
You get the same benefit.
Yeah, I have my own notebook. This is very essential for college students. You have your own notebook. In the notebook, you write the new words, the new expression, not only having the new words, but using the new words, the new expression in sentences, in meaningful sentences.
Yeah.
This will help a lot.
Excuse me, just I may add to my colleague. In case of listening, first of all, one has to have a positive mindset. All of us students have negative mindset.
Yes.
They say we can't do this. We can't.
Yeah.
They should say we can do it, or instead of we can't.
They didn't even try it.
Yeah. Another point is what is called the cross training. Cross training, for example, it is give an example of a footballer. A footballer needs training in football, but at the same time he needs another kind of skill, that's swimming. So to increase endurance.
Yeah.
In case of listening,
gym.
we need to listen, read, and speak. Yeah. Listen first, then read and listen and read. Listen and speak. Speaking means mimicking, shadowing. It is.
I guess I have something to add.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we have two, let's say, sides. The first side is the lecture. If it is delivered in a good way, learners will be interested with this,
Definitely.
kind of lecture,
Definitely.
and then they are going to learn. And the other side is the distractors. Of course, we have a lot of distractors, the media, the misuse of the internet, surfing the internet, and other, distractors. Nowadays we have a lot, right? So I guess we need something which is called reflection. The reflection, which means at the end of the lecture, we have to use a written task of reflection. Ask the students 3 things that you have learned, 3 new things that you have learned today. Are you interested with the lecture? What are your suggestions? This will give them first self-confidence. It will give you an evaluation, which means you are going, of course, to change your methods of teaching. Methods of teaching are not, let's say, it is a rule you have to follow unless the learners are the same. So learners are different, generations are different. So you have to use different methods for different generations. This is what we call the learner's characteristics. So of course, reflection will be helpful in this.
Dr. do you want to add something?
No, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. Now at the end of our fruitful session, that was titled Learning English in the Perspective of the Department of English at University of Karbala. Special thanks to our guests, Dr. Mؤيد Amran, Dr. Zahir, Dr. Haydar Kaظم, and Dr. ضياء. Khaleil, we extend our thanks to the people who helped to make this session successful. The General Supervisor, Mr. Azhar, the cameraman and sound engineer, Ali Mirza, the Director, Karar Al-Jaber, and with all my regards, Mؤيد Ahmad.
لغة القرآن تبقى أعظم كل اللغات، ولغات الغير تنفع كسلاح